Hey Memphis, this is Best in Blue. This show is just like it sounds. We're talking to the best and brightest in the Memphis Police Department. In each episode, we do a deep dive into the various jobs within the department, and more importantly, we do a deep dive into the lives of the very human men and women behind the badge. And now, here's your host, Candace Gray.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Best in Blue, presented by Memphis Police Department and empowered by Kadzukian. We're so happy you joined us today, and today we are graced with the presence of our very own Chief CJ Davis once again. We are so happy to have her here. We're going to go deep today, guys. We're going to talk about being a woman in a man's world. James Brown said it best, did he not? All of that and more when we return to Best in Blue.
Riffing on jazz.
Dizzy Gillespie. Can you imagine one of your first gigs being with Dizzy?
What a star.
Riffing on jazz on the Kadzukian Network. Kadzukian!
And welcome back to Best in Blue. We are so excited to have Chief CJ Davis again with us. We kicked off this year's season of Best in Blue with Chief Davis, and she just loved it so much she decided to come back for more. And we are so excited to have you here, Chief Davis. Welcome.
Thank you, Candace. Thank you.
So we are going to get into the nitty gritty, and we are going to talk a little bit about the pathway to Chief. The first time we got to learn a little bit about, who Chief Davis is, and now we want to talk a little bit more about the work that you do on behalf of the citizens of Memphis day in and day out. Could you start just by telling us what do you do on a daily basis? What are your primary responsibilities?
Well, my primary responsibilities are a myriad of things, but, I lead an organization of about 2,600 employees. And, all of them bring something to the table that's really critical to the mission of the police department and providing public safety for our city. So I'm constantly making sure that I don't just think about our police officers, but we have civilian employees too that are very important. The support staff to our operation is really important too. So I'm constantly thinking about how to improve the work environment, not just for our officers, but also for our civilian employees, to make them want to come to work every day.
Absolutely.
And want to support this really, really important work that our officers provide on a day-to-day basis. So everything from creating training opportunities for them and, and increasing their awareness about, the police world and what our officers are having to deal with and how important they are. So we started a civilian advisory board where I meet with the civilian employees and we recognize them now in our annual, So really just running a police department means that everybody's important.
Absolutely.
And in order for us to be effective in service delivery for the community, then we have to be an effective running police department, efficient and effective in healthy the culture. Business. Exactly. A healthy culture and everything, and trying to root out, toxicity sometimes, in the work environment.
Bad apples, I would say.
That's right.
Sometimes, in every organization. I mean, it happens. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. In every organization. And sometimes no matter what you do, you're always going to have, one or two people who, no matter what, are going to be unhappy.
Absolutely.
But you have to focus on the critical mass and ensure that the organization is moving in the right direction. And we're always looking to improve.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And so what would you say the ratio of civilian employees is to actual
I think we're
officers?
we're somewhere right at around 10% civilian employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's good to know, because even if you have not gone through the academy, there is
Right.
still an opportunity for you to be part of the organization.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
And sometimes even our officers that go, or our recruits or wannabe police officers go through the academy, they realize this isn't for me.
Sure.
Instead of us allowing them to just move on to another organization somewhere, we've decided that it's important to hold on to these valuable employees and maybe help them transition into some other work inside of the police department.
Love that. I love that. And it's been so fun getting to know about the different departments. From a chief standpoint, I know that there's so much that happens. You mentioned, you've been knee deep in budget season.
Yes.
And
Yes.
What would you say? What's the fun part about your everyday work?
Well, I would say the fun part is that you just don't ever have a routine day.
Right. No 2 days.
That's kind of fun. Because some people go to work every day and they know exactly what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Every day they clock in, break is in an hour and a half,
TPS
lunch
reports.
is at noon.
Right.
Sometimes our days are no breaks.
Yeah. No lunch. Right.
Lunch is at dinner time.
Exactly.
And sometimes there's no dinner, So I think the excitement is really, having challenges every day and really challenging yourself to overcome, the various types of issues and matters that affect the community, and for us to get out there and try to resolve them. Yeah. And sometimes that in itself is challenging.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you think you've seen it all, then there's some other issue, a situation that you're trying to figure out quickly, but it keeps us on our toes.
Absolutely.
And it lets us know that in this ever-changing world that we have to be ever ready.
That's right.
And we have to continuously prepare ourselves for the unknown. Yes. We always think that, every day is just going to be the norm. Yeah. Some days we end up with storms. Yeah. And we have to help. Some days, we think a lot about even earthquakes. I've thought about, if this city has an earthquake, what do we do?
What do we do? Yeah. Absolutely.
How do we respond to that?
So speaking of just the different challenges, in terms of your path to chief, what were some of the challenges that you had to overcome? Obviously you've held different roles in different departments around the country. Can you just talk a little bit about your path and some of the things that you've overcome to get where you are today?
Well, I didn't come into the industry thinking that I was going to be a chief one day.
Right.
That's just not, how things start out. Sure. But I've had some wonderful role models, throughout my career. There have been bumps in the road and challenges, especially in a male-dominated sort of environment. And sometimes, you think you're ready for this industry, but the industry isn't necessarily ready for you. Yep. And that was the tone of things, back in the 80s and early 90s, when women became more prevalent in law enforcement. But the challenge is to move up and to aspire to go to higher ranks became even more challenging, because you were looked upon as a threat, and some of your male counterparts really couldn't swallow the idea of taking orders from a woman.
Right.
And then after you end up in those positions, they were like, okay, I like working for her.
Yeah. Like, it's not
She's
so
pretty
bad.
cool.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think what has been important is to be ready for that next level, to be knowledgeable about whatever area of the work that the industry puts you in, and be ready for those challenges. So my career has always been preparing myself constantly from the very beginning. I came from a military family. And coming from a military family, my father, he was one of the first African Americans to be allowed to be a part of the special forces.
Wow.
And, Green Beret, which was a really big deal. It's kind of like the SEALs in the Navy. But he was a paratrooper and a medic during the Vietnam era. And he served twice in Vietnam. So we grew up in a military environment, 6 kids, and we were just very structured in the manner in which we did our work. Mm-hmm. You don't work, you don't eat. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the way it was at my house. Yeah. You don't do your homework. You don't get to watch TV.
Exactly.
You don't do your chores. You don't get to go outside.
That's that good old school
That's
structure.
good old school. And we were very compliant, and ensuring that we did everything that my parents, wanted us to do. I'm very much who my father was as it relates to being, he was a great leader. I've always wanted to be a great leader, no matter what role. And my mother was a nurturer. She took care of the 6 kids. My dad wouldn't allow her to work. It was a very traditional kind of family. And so, encapsulating, the leader, the nurturer. I think my leadership style is a lot of what my family environment instilled in me.
Wonderful. And then you went to, where did you go to undergrad?
My undergrad was at St. Leo University. Okay. And I did my master's at Central Michigan University. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Criminal justice, undergrad, and then general administration. Like same as public administration for my master's. And
were you already in the police department, wherever you were when you...
Yes, I was an officer. Okay. I was an officer with books in my car.
Right. I love it. Studying on
years ago. Yeah, studying. And even as I prepared, myself for a master's degree, it was the same thing. Yeah. Work and school. At the same time.
I love it. Well, I want to hear even more about that after the break. We're going to go to a break, but before we do, I want to ask you a question. Okay. And we'll answer it when you come back. When we come back, I would like to know, what is the most challenging part of being the chief of police for the Memphis Police Department? Think about it. And we will discuss it when we come back to Best in Blue. You are listening to Best in Blue, presented by the Memphis Police Department and empowered by Kazukian. We'll be right back.
Hi, this is Patrice Jordan Robinson, chairwoman of the Memphis City Council, and I tell all of my friends to check out yours truly on A View from the Chair, where we talk about everything Memphis. You can catch the latest episodes by downloading the Kazukian app in your App Store or Google Play, or even by listening via your favorite podcast provider.
Welcome back. You are listening to Best in Blue, presented by the Memphis Police Department. And we are here with, really and truly one of my favorite people, Chief CJ Davis.
Well, thank you, Candace.
And we left with a cliffhanger question. And that question was, what is the most challenging part of being the chief of police in Memphis, Tennessee?
Well, I really think that, the department as a whole is a great police department. You have officers that come to work every day. And I really don't think that they realize how difficult this work is here in Memphis compared to some of the other cities. Sure. Other cities have challenges as well, but other cities get a break every now and then. Right. Yes. Officers don't get a break. They don't get a break, and it's challenging because you want to keep them motivated. You want to give them hope that, we're making a difference. Absolutely. You want to give the community hope. Yes. And then sometimes even with, the challenges with media, what they say, if it bleeds, it leads. Yes. But even in community meetings and talking to various stakeholders in the community, they really do want to hear more about some of the the great things about Memphis.
Yes.
And trying to help change that narrative is a challenge because coming to Memphis, I, as an outsider, basically felt that this was a city that had great hope, had a rich history.
Sure.
You know, it has a storied history here. And some people think of it as being, you know, Martin Luther King was assassinated here in the city of Memphis. But that was a very traumatic time, but a pivotal time in the history of the world.
Absolutely.
And I think often how important it is from a public safety standpoint to demonstrate to the public and to the community that law enforcement is transitioning into a totally different culture. Of course, it's a culture that's going to require a lot of work to change.
Yes.
And it takes a different kind of leadership to change the culture.
And you can't do it overnight.
And you
right?
absolutely can't do it overnight.
It does not happen overnight.
Right, right. But coming from, you know, the city of Atlanta, home of the civil rights movement, you know, it was sort of ingrained in us that there is a duty to not be what, you know, community members experienced, you know, back in the civil rights era, that we aren't to be the heavy hand. We are to provide, you know, public safety, take care of our communities, and that we are a part of the community. You know, Robert Peel, who is considered the father of law enforcement, father of policing, one of the quotes was, "The police are the community, and the community are the police."
Right.
And that we should be working together to a common goal and a common, you know, end. And so challenging times comes when, you know, community doesn't trust, you know, public trust is important. And as a person that I feel people can trust me over the years, people trust me and know that when what I say, I mean what I say.
Absolutely.
And that my officers don't just represent each other. They represent me.
Absolutely.
They represent, you know, who we are in the community. And so it's a challenge trying to ensure that everyone is buying into and embrace, you know, the philosophy of community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the work that you guys are doing in the community, from the community town halls and even some of the, you know, celebrations or events that are happening.
Absolutely.
All of those are so important because they build community, they build rapport.
Yes.
They give the community and the officers an opportunity to get to know each other.
That's right.
And, you know, their approaches and, you know, what motivates them and things like that. We had a couple of other folks on, and I just really enjoyed helping them tell those stories. So I'm glad that we at least have this forum to be able to do that. I'd also like to know just a little bit more about, you know, what have you done in terms of preparation for this moment, for this time?
Yeah.
I know you mentioned, you know, your couple of degrees.
Yeah.
Are there any other organizations you're a part of or specific trainings that you do?
Yeah.
I think you mentioned you have a community of police chiefs that you get with. So just talk a little bit about that.
So I'm involved in numerous organizations.
Okay.
And when I say numerous is because over the years, you know, there's various associations that not only that I felt were valuable for me to be a part of, but also to, you know, take on leadership positions. I'm one of the past presidents of the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives.
Oh, wow.
Black chiefs from across the country.
Wonderful.
It's an organization that I joined probably 25 years ago as a sergeant at that time.
Yeah.
I wasn't eligible at that time to be a full-fledged member because, you know, you had to be at the executive level, but they allowed younger officers to be a part of the organization so that you could take advantage of the mentoring opportunities and you know, sitting in those forums.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I was an associate member and remained a member of the organization throughout the years, but the organization wasn't just about, you know, conferences and chiefs and learning symposiums and things. It was also about community.
Mm-hmm.
The organization started back in 1976 as an organization that rallied around Black law enforcement executives who aspired to be chiefs because the playing field wasn't even, back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so around the country, they came together to say that we're going to start this organization, National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives, which is NOBLE. Mm-hmm. And you may have seen us on CNN and a number of different places. I'm also a member of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. I sat on the board for a long time. Another very large organization, not so much, originated from the African American, chiefs forum, but these are chiefs from all over the world.
Wow.
And we conference on a regular basis. We help influence legislation to Congress. On the heels of George Floyd, I was participated in Senate testimony on police reform.
Wow.
And recommended, when you hear these different legislations that are recommended, NOBLE, my organization, at the time I was the president, our organization laid the footprint for some of the new legislation that we hear about.
Amazing.
in police reform.
Wow.
Duty to intervene, duty to render aid, and a number of different really important use of force kind of transformations and changes in the industry is now being pushed as legislation.
Amazing. So it's not just about the work you do down at, 100 North Main?
170 North Main.
Right.
And that's why it's important.
It's bigger than that.
It is.
Yeah.
Even on the heels of Tyree Nichols, it's important for me to even say that we weren't just impacted here in the city of Memphis.
Right.
The country was paying attention and leaning forward. I was on the phone on conference calls with chiefs around the country because I'm a member of the Major City Chiefs organization as well.
Wow.
So all the major city chiefs concerned about whether or not there will be protests and what can they do in their communities to support community that's hurting as a result as well. And so I think it was important here for us to listen carefully to, the public. And that's part of the work. Listen to the community. What does the community need from their police department? Yeah. We belong to the community.
Absolutely. I love that. We are almost out of time.
I've talked too much.
No, you have not talked enough. We'll probably have to have you back for a final. What are you guys talking about over there? Oh, you're a member of... Oh.
Yes.
Another organization? Is there another?
Yes, there are numerous. There is my sorority, Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated.
Oh, okay.
And, as a Delta, lifelong Delta, I think it's, important to note that that's more about who I am outside of this uniform and as a community stakeholder in the work that I think is important for all of us to do in our communities in whatever capacity. Absolutely. But it really doesn't matter what sorority or fraternity that you're in. I think we all are like-minded and we have a common interest to really pour back into the community. To serve the community. I tell people all the time, I don't wake up in the morning with this uniform on.
Right.
I wake up as a citizen. Yeah. When I watch the news at night, I'm a citizen. And my job helps me to influence the change that our community wants to see.
Absolutely. Chief, we have one more question, then I think we're going to have to go. What advice would you give to young people, especially young women who might aspire to be chief of police one day? What would you say to them?
Well, there's no playbook, to becoming the head of anything, to tell you the truth.
Right.
I think what you have to do is really think in terms of who are the people that are around you, that are influencing you, and that are supporting you and shoring you up, even in times when it's difficult, when you're facing challenges. Always, have those people in your circle that are for you, that are your cheerleaders, and they may not be part of the industry. They may be people that are close to you, family members, church, and other types of individuals. And don't let people dissuade what you want in life. Absolutely. Because there are always going to be naysayers. But my father used to tell me all the time, always question the messenger. When people come to you with negativity, always question, why would they bring that to me? And at the same time, learn how to block that out.
That's it.
And receive those individuals that are bringing positivity, positive messages. And then sometimes you have to be alone and encourage yourself.
Right. I think you mentioned you don't really do social media.
I don't.
So that you can kind of stay focused and
that's right.
Keep those naysayers at bay.
That's right. Because, social media, unfortunately, I think initially it was a great space for people to connect with each other. Sure. But, over the years, it's really changed to, there's a lot of negative kinds of messaging and sometimes totally unnecessary. And if you get so, ingrained and immersed in that, it can affect your psyche.
Absolutely.
And when you're in an important role, and people are depending on you to make critical decisions, you don't have time for foolishness.
That's right.
So you learn to block it out. You learn to have, thick skin. And that's what I encourage young people. Block out the noise, stay focused on your goals, no matter what it is.
That's it.
Stay focused and get people around you that are your cheerleaders.
I love it. Well, thank you once again, Chief Davis, for joining us. Whew, this was a good one. You guys have been listening to Best in Blue, presented by the Memphis Police Department and empowered by Kadzukian. As always, we appreciate you tuning in to learn more about our police department and the men and women behind the badge. Be sure to like us and follow us across all of our social media platforms and listen to the show wherever you stream your podcasts. Find us at Best in Blue MPD on Instagram and Best in Blue on Facebook. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.
This is Memphis Police Chief CJ Davis encouraging you to join our Best in Blue. Our requirements are achievable, our standards are the highest, and our officers are the finest. Check out opportunities to join our police department at joinmpd.com.